Hello again, everybody, and welcome to Gamecock Central Radio. It's Emerson Phillips with Wes Mitchell. Wes was at the Will Muschamp press conference today, getting ready for South Carolina and Clemson. 7:30 kickoff Saturday night at Williams-Brice. The game will be televised on ESPN. Wes, very short, very sweet, the press conference today. Muschamp didn't say much at all.
Yeah, I think, obviously they want to sort of try to do their talking on the field. It was pretty clear that he was going to answer the questions, but not really give away a whole lot, not really give any ammo. I think you look at it where if you're South Carolina, there's really nothing to gain from giving much away against this team. So generally, these press conferences, the bigger the game, the longer the press conference. But in this case, that's not what happened at all.
Not at all. It was about 10 minutes, and that was it. The shortest press conference of the year for the midweek press conference for Will Muschamp today. Injury report, Wes, Antoine Wilder is out with the dislocated elbow, but Jam Williams practiced Tuesday and will play against Clemson.
Yeah, big for them to have Jam Williams back. You look at the game against Wofford last week, there was really no need to play him. And I'm not even saying that as any disrespect towards Wofford. I'm saying it just more from a scheme standpoint. They're obviously not really a spread team. I think you wanted some bigger guys in the game, and you had to do some different things formationally, personnel-wise against a team like Wofford. Against Clemson, you need that extra defensive back on the field, and that's what Jemias is for South Carolina. They played that nickel a ton this year, and Jemias has sort of been the guy that's on the field, either specifically at the nickel back position or you slide Crystal Mines down to the nickel back and play Jemias in a safety role at times. But either way, man, I mean, they really only have, if you look at it, they really only have about 6 defensive backs that they're really comfortable with. So getting Jemias Williams back against a team that is going to spread you out, is going to do a lot of different things with wide receivers on the field, very, very important that they have Jemias Williams back for this game. That outside linebacker spot, they're probably not in the 4-3 a ton this week against Clemson anyway, but they do have some guys, Danny Fennell, then Sherrod Green, the freshman linebacker who can play that Sam linebacker spot that Wilder had been playing. So they should be fine at that position.
Jam Williams having an outstanding freshman year, and he brings that strong competitive streak that you like. Certainly the Gamecocks will use that on Saturday night, something they could have used more of last year, frankly. Wes, talking about keys for South Carolina this weekend, Muschamp was asked, what are some of the things you're going to have to do to have a chance to win this ball game? And the first thing he said is block those guys up front, talking about the Clemson defensive line that pressured Gamecock quarterbacks throughout last year in the rivalry game. And, Muschamp started there.
Yeah, I think that's probably the first thing you look at, man. Not just pass protection, that offensive line has got to sort of take care of business both in the passing game and the running game. I mean, you watch the game from last year, and they absolutely, Emerson did not have a chance. They were blown up before it started. Clemson, I think, timed their snap count to start with, and just really, it was almost like Clemson was blowing up their plays before they even started, so they never really had a chance to get into their offense. There's a lot of talk today from the players. Alan Knott spoke. He was very confident that he does not think that's going to happen again. Said that they did not show up with the focus they needed to last year. Said that they were not focused on the right things last year, and that they did not play their assignments well last year. So, he was very, very passionate about the fact that they're going to not do that again. Obviously, it is a tough matchup for South Carolina, but I felt like last year they were never really even in the game. So you're going to lose some battles against this front just because they truly are that good. I'm not blowing Clemson up, man. I'm not giving them accolades they don't deserve. That's a very, very talented defensive front. If you're South Carolina, you have to just give your offense a chance because, one thing that's a little bit different about this Clemson team this year, from what I've gathered, Emerson, is that if they have a lead on you, you look at the Auburn game as an example, if they have a lead on you, they're perfectly okay just running the football and playing situational ball and running the clock down. So that keeps their games maybe a little bit closer than they have been with some of those pass teams where if they could score 50, they were going to try to run it up and score 50. So, that mindset may change a little bit this week because of the opponent, but I think for the most part, teams can hang around against Clemson maybe a little bit more, and that offers opportunities. But at the end of the day, this line is just going to have to give South Carolina a chance. And one thing Clemson will do is they'll basically go into what is a version of the bear front, where you're, instead of playing a gap, you're playing your defensive front on a man. And, a lot of times when you blitz guys, you're trying to blitz to try to scheme open a free rusher. Well, at times, Clemson is just going to say, your 5 against our 5, one-on-one, at least one of our guys is going to win a battle and make a play in the backfield. So it is a tough matchup because they trust their guys, and they'll get them in those one-on-one situations and say, go make a play.
Wes, you mentioned the Gamecocks not playing their assignments last year in the Clemson game, and that certainly could be said of the defense. And Sky Moore this week talked about the Gamecocks having a problem with eye discipline against Clemson last year. What does that mean, Wes?
Yeah, well, I think, and Muschamp went as far as to say that at times they were looking at the wrong things. And I think while we won't know the specifics of what that means exactly, what that means in general is that likely South Carolina players were getting caught watching that, so to speak, window dressing you always hear about, because Clemson's going to use motion, they're going to use shift, they're going to use a bunch of different things. And all it's designed to do is to get you looking at that and not paying attention to your keys, so to speak. On any given play, the defense has been given keys that they're watching, and it's a particular player. Does this guy move this way? Does this particular player move that way? Is he dropping in the pass coverage? Is he pulling against the run? Is he, if he's a tight end, is he dropping back, to protect, but then going out for a pass? On every given play, these guys have something they're supposed to be keying in on that helps them diagnose what's happening. So, obviously, Muschamp has used the words, we were out-coached last year. He's put it on himself as well. I think you look at those things, and it's easy to see when you look back on that game. Certainly there was a huge talent disparity between the two teams, but Clemson, I think, was in a better position from the very start to win that game. It sounds like South Carolina had some issues, and, if they eliminate those things, then all of a sudden maybe you find yourself in a much more competitive game. And I think, Muschamp, even beyond that, went as far as to say there were some guys last year who did not compete when adversity struck. So I think that's something as a coach, you can take a lot of things, you can take getting beat, but that's something from all the coaches I've ever been around, that burns a coach up more inside than anything else, is when he sees, hey, my guys did not compete. So I don't think that's going to be something that's a problem this year as far as this Gamecock team.
Yeah, Muschamp was asked what's different this year, and he said this football team competes. He said that's something they didn't do a very good job of last year against Clemson. And Wes, Muschamp was also asked about Jake Bentley and how Bentley is different now compared to last year, and he said it's like night and day.
Yeah, and I think Jake has a great understanding of the game of football this year compared to last year. He's always been, maybe ahead of his years as far as that goes, but just going out there and playing, and I'm telling you, Brent Venables, a lot of these coaches, especially when they have as much talent as Clemson does, sometimes they are more likely to sort of almost say, we're going to simplify things and just let our talent take over, where, well, Venables takes a different approach. They have all this talent, but they mix and match. And, I asked Jake Bentley about that today because I had been told, talking to some high school coaches, that Venables just throws the kitchen sink at you as a defense coordinator. And Jake said they're very multiple. I think it's going to be very, very important for Jake Bentley to be completely dialed in mentally in this game, because they will throw everything at a quarterback and try to get you to make mistakes and try to get you out of your rhythm. And so sometimes, especially a young quarterback, that's very, very difficult to try and make quick decisions when you're seeing stuff you haven't seen before. So, I think Venables does a great job. they'll have looks that South Carolina maybe hasn't seen, because that's what they do. They throw all kinds of stuff at the opposing quarterback. Now, I think at times they'll turn a guy loose deep, so to speak. They'll maybe have a miscommunication and you get a guy deep downfield, because they do run. So, you hear the word multiple thrown around a ton when you hear about college football. There's a very multiple defense. They're going to do a lot to you. So, all the more important for Jake Bentley to use all that experience he has this week. And sometimes, Emerson, that may mean just eating the football. Sometimes, you see a quarterback drop back and he sort of just has to take off and run for no gain. And the fans get a little antsy and they say, throw the ball, what are you doing? But sometimes if you drop back and it's just not the look you think, you have to just eat it and live for the next play, because it's way better than throwing it if you're uncertain and throwing an interception.
Muschamp was asked if watching the film of last year's game was a motivator for the Gamecocks, and he said you don't need a lot of motivation for a game of this magnitude. And, Wes, the number one talking point today, I think the one area that Muschamp talked about the most in this very brief Tuesday press conference was the offensive line. And he said, he started off by saying that the Gamecocks would have to block these guys up front, meaning the Tigers, and he summed it up at the end of the press conference by saying that the Gamecocks are looking forward to the matchup, and Muschamp said there's a great opportunity in front of us.
Yeah, and I think you look at this game and you look at some of those matchups, and I mean, certainly Clemson on paper has the advantage in a lot of those matchups. I think this is a man-up type game where, not that you need any extra motivation for this one, because I think that what happened last year and the way it happened, and, Alan Knott talked about how he was asked, do you think Clemson respects South Carolina as a football team? And, his answer was, in his personal opinion, no. So I think this is a game where, if you're South Carolina, you kind of feel like you've been challenged a little bit. Your manhood's been challenged a little bit, and it's on your home turf. It's a 7:30 primetime kickoff. That stadium is going to be absolutely electric. It's kind of one of those, let's see what South Carolina's made of type games. So, I mean, if the guys don't get excited or fired up for that, then, there's probably no need to even put on the helmet and shoulder pads and all that. So I think it's going to be a fun environment, man. I say it every year. Iron Bowl may get all the national accolades and all that, but when those two fan bases are stuffed into one stadium, regardless of whether it's in Columbia or in the upstate, it's a pretty special atmosphere.
Yeah, not much that we can add. I think most people listening today understand how important this ball game is. And before we wrap it up today, I want to encourage our listeners to get involved with Gamecock Central's podcast. We've got the Gamecock Central hotline set up for you. The number's 803-497-9058. You can call that number, leave us a voicemail, and we will play the recording of your voice on this Saturday's Game Day podcast here on Gamecock Central Radio. 497-9058. Comments, questions, feedback. Call the GC hotline, 497-9058. We're taking calls on the Clemson game this week, so we encourage you to get involved with our podcast. Wes Mitchell, thanks for the report today.
Sounds good, man. We'll talk to you soon, and we'll have our Game Day podcast on Saturday. I'm looking forward to it.
Yes, we will, and plenty more coverage on this Clemson game coming up this week here on Gamecock Central. We appreciate you joining us. For Wes Mitchell, I'm Emerson Phillips. Thanks for being with us on Gamecock Central Radio.